Session number 7. Okay. So maybe I guess we started our journey a few days back, and maybe I guess we have almost reached to the unmanaged scenario. Maybe I guess a third flavor of RAP, right? Maybe let's just go through a bit of a recap of what we did in the earlier session, and then maybe we'll start with the other implementations. So as a part of yesterday's session, mainly we were focusing on the unmanaged RAP. Our idea was that if RAP comes up with a managed and unmanaged scenario both, then what is the difference between managed and unmanaged? So we primarily understood that maybe it depends on the question called who is going to implement the standard REST API operations, right? So if it's standard framework which is going to implement, we can call it as a managed scenario. If it is developer who is going to take the responsibility, we can call it as an unmanaged scenario. We understood that on top of the normal behaviors, how about the draft capabilities? So what we mentioned and what we also started understanding was that to some extent, the draft capabilities in the unmanaged scenario is also somehow handled by the framework itself. We are not supposed to do much over there. Yeah, there are few things which we might have to adjust a bit compared to when it comes to manage, but still framework is going to take care of it. When it comes to the actual business logic implementation, in the managed, developer used to take the responsibility. In the unmanaged, ideally, I can say plugging the existing business logic will be the responsibility of a developer. But idea is we'll anyway go with the unmanaged when we do have some sort of a API, some sort of a logic which is already available, right? So that's also something which you would have observed. Now, when I should go with a unmanaged. So ideally, you should go with unmanaged when you do have some API classes, BAPI, some utility methods, functions which are available for your operations that you are willing to perform. Now, if we start developing unmanaged operations, uh, considering I have already a managed one, and I would like to keep that application alive, but still want to have an unmanaged. What are the things I might have to develop? So the interface view that we redesign, interface view that we developed earlier are reusable. We can consume it rather than regenerating it. But the R view and C view that we do have are specifically designed for that particular application or service. So what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to recreate it for the unmanaged scenario as well. So they are not reusable. And on this R and C view, we'll create our behavior definition and projection, and at the end of the day, we'll expose it in the form of a service definition and binding. Okay, so that's all we understood. Now let's just go through the objects that we generated. So as a part of this particular application, we understood that we'll create some sort of a R view and C view, consuming the existing I views, the interface view that we created. So these for the travel, which becomes my route, booking become my child node of it. So it's having an association to parent. Then I expose a consumption view out of my unmanaged R view. With the C view, I also did the same thing. Afterwards, when we generated the behavior on top of the R view, we started observing certain similarities and differences. The main difference you would see over here is the keyword called unmanaged over here. The moment you say unmanaged, my system understands that you are willing to do the unmanaged implementation. Hence, the persistent table mention, which was there earlier over here, you won't find it. And if I would like to add the draft capability, we added the with draft as well. So draft table is something which we ultimately mapped. It means that draft handling is something which my framework is going to take care of, more or less, right? Afterwards, we use the same static field control kind of what we already had. So there are no differences when it comes to static field control. They work the way it used to work earlier. Create, update, delete, the draft capabilities, the mapping we used to specify. Yeah, earlier the purpose of mapping was to ensure that whenever the post call or any DB manipulation call comes, my system knows where to push the data. This time, system is not going to directly push the data, but rather for us to understand where I should push the data, I'll still need the mapping. So that's why this mapping is also required. Same goes with the child entity. Now, when we started implementing the custom handler class for that, we understood that we can have a I'll just go over here. We can have individual method for create, update, delete. So this particular BI layer, business interface layer, is ideally there to interact with your business and mainly to trigger individual API methods, whichever suits best for that particular operation. So for example, in case of a create, we are supposed to create a travel. So we call a create travel method. The purpose of this will be to push the data into the buffer and not to persist it. Okay. If you directly, let's just say, try to write a DB update statement over here, in each iteration a new record will get created, which really does not make sense. So what you are supposed to do is, here you are supposed to push the data into buffer. At end of the day, when your record has been fine-tuned and everything is fine, once you reach your final saver class SC, that's what SC stands for, in the save method we are finally persisting the data. So the API call, the API class that we mimic, is having those method create and the save. In the create, we are pushing the data into the buffer. This GT travel, maybe we can consider it as our buffer, and in this one we are pushing the data into the table. Okay, and we are ensuring that it is a single particular object. Now it depends, totally depending on individual APIs that we are consuming, it may or may not be singleton, but most of the time this phase you will see the singleton design pattern being followed. Okay, anyone has any doubt on the approach, on the route that we are going through for the unmanaged? Okay, let's just proceed further then. Now, earlier when we started with this, we had an BO which was, okay, I'll just close this view as we don't need it. It takes too many screens on the screen. Okay, now when we started with this, we were able to create a set of travel via my unmanaged wrap BO. But going forward, when we enrich it with some sort of a draft, we are not able to create. In the edit mode, we were able to view certain things for sure. So what we'll see, what are those things, right? I mean, how my system behaves in that particular case. So for example, this is my unmanaged project that I just executed. I'll just try to click on create for the very first time. We don't have a breakpoint, so I'll also anyway deactivate as well. So as we can see, we as you would have seen the same behavior in your managed scenario as well. Even though we say read only update, my system does not give me any option to pass my travel ID over here. So either I can go with early numbering or late numbering over here in order for me to decide whether I would like to have the number generated beforehand or afterwards. Once after I add my data over here, I can expect those things also to start getting populated into my buffer, and I should be able to populate that. Now let's see what are those change. What are the things that will change if I say, for example, I would like to go with some sort of a late numbering, for example, right? Because we would like to have a full-fledged application working with all the operation intact, but with the unmanaged scenario. So for us to understand what are the things that we might have to implement. Okay, I'll just call, let's just say late numbering over here. Okay, I'll just save this and let's see if there is anything. Here it says that as your parent has a late numbering implemented, this node should also have a late numbering implementation available. Okay, I'll just save this. Now, at this point in time, it's asking me to adjust both the tables. So we have already learned why, because it's going to add some sort of a draft UUID. So there is something we also understood and learn in manage, right? So whenever you are saying late numbering, it adds some unique ID over here called draft UUID. Okay, so there is something which will help us keep the key combination over here unique till the time your draft has not been generated. Okay, I'll just discard the one which I anyway generated for time being. Okay, and I'll just activate this table. Okay, now I'll just try to create the draft table for this one as well. I can say recreate. And I'll just activate this. Okay, I'll close this, and next step for us will be, it says that there is some method it is expecting. It says that there is some issue on your behavior level. We have to figure that out. What's that? Okay, now we'll go on my behavior level over here and see what does it have to say. Maybe let's just go over here and try to do a syntax check. It says that this particular late numbering is there. It means we have to redefine some method called adjust numbers, right? That's what you see over here. Adjust number must be redefined. So let me just redefine that. Methods, adjust numbers, redefinition. Okay, and I'll just create this method over here. Okay, now let's just go in a sequential manner that really makes sense. For example, will be my finalize, which finalize my data, then check before save. It will save my record. Okay, then I can say that my number should also be adjusted. So once everything has been finalized, adjust my number and try to add that particular number over here. So we can have the methods defined definitely in any sequence in a class, but logically we are arranging it so it gets we get a clear picture in our mind saying in what manner, in what sequence the methods are actually going to get triggered. Okay, so these may be how we can expect it to do. Now, okay, what it is, adjust number must be redefined. Okay, yeah, one second. Define it, isn't it? Okay, let's just do this. I might be doing something wrong. Put a cursor. No entity has the property late numbering. Okay, fine. Maybe we have to activate this as well. So behavior is something we are yet to activate. That's the reason I'm getting an error. I'll just activate both of them together. Okay, so now it seems good. I have an adjust numbers also defined. Now I can expect my system to have a draft GUID generated for that. Now, another thing over here is that if I try to look at the behaviors that I had created earlier, right? So for example, if I just go in my create section, which is over here, for example, this create travel, put a cursor, you see entities over here. It has got percentage CID is draft and all these things, right? Over here. And the key combination, right? So we have got all this thing in the mapping parameter in the travel, we have just got a PID. So maybe I guess the one which we are able to see in my managed scenario, same way over here, as it's a unmanaged scenario, we also get that particular PID over here, and that's something we are going to use going forward. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll try to enrich the record in a way that enrich the record particularly in a way that maybe my PID is also going to get generated. So I'll just go over here in my create travel. Okay, now in this particular create travel, what are we doing? We are just setting the data into buffer. But how about the temporary number that we do have? My mapping does not know till the time I don't specify which record I have pushed into the buffer, right? So as we are supposed to pass the temporary number, what we'll do is we'll generate that number considering the input parameter that we do have. I'll just say fill map parameter. Okay, and here we are supposed to fill the map parameter. Now, what are we supposed to map over here? I'll just simply say I am trying to map, for example, some sort of a travel. So, okay, one sec. I'll just simply say this one. And here I have mapped. And here, Right, not showing anything. Maybe let's just reactivate this class. The signatures somehow got okay. TT mapped early over here. Okay, now it has this. Now if I just put a cursor on create travel, it has also got TT mapped early. And yeah, now I see over here, right? So I have got this particular map travel over here. And in this particular map one, now I should be able to view this. Maybe because of some activation, I was not able to see certain thing. I can see now travel over here. Okay, now, sorry. Okay, now what are we supposed to pass to the output? So my system knows what's being processed, right? As we can see, the output that's expected is having a percentage CID, is draft, PID, and the travel ID. Correct. So this CID and is draft. If I just go over here, I have a key parameter that's one. I have a TKY over here, which contains all these three parameters. If I just go in PKY, I have this particular one. Okay, I'll just go back. And here, if I say my entities over here, what does it contain? Percentage CID is draft and travel ID. Right. Percentage CID is draft and the travel ID over here. Now in this particular one, the key parameter is also the same, which is your particular key parameter. Tomorrow, let's just say if this gets changed with some sort of a new parameter, I may not be worried. At the same point in time, the other thing which I need is the CID and is draft. Whatever is in input ideally should also be mapped to the output with one more additional parameter which my map need, and that's called a PID. So these three things are somewhere available in my input, be it blank or with the value. That does not make any difference. But at least these are there in my input. But this PID is not there in my input. So I have to generate it. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just try to iterate on whatever we have got till now. I'll just simply say ls entities in entities over here. Okay, and then maybe we'll say percentage key. So tomorrow, let's just say my key parameter change. I may not need to change anything. I'll just simply say percentage key. Let's just try to make it generic. Okay, now my key just contained the travel ID. The other two parameters are also something which I'm supposed to pass. So I'll just simply say CID over here. I'll just pass the same CID over here. Okay. Another thing maybe we'll pass is the draft information saying in which mode it's being processed. So I'll just say ls entity and is draft. Right. Now the last thing, the PID component, which is nothing but your preliminary ID. Now this PID ideally should be very resemblant to your draft GUID. It means your draft character, okay, your draft number, which is of type row 16, the same kind of information should be generated and which will behave as a temporary ID for you. So maybe if you have observed the PID generation in my manage, then it used to be also some sort of a GUID. It also used to be some sort of a UUID, which system used to generate. As there is an unmanaged, we are supposed to generate this at this point in time. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just simply say percentage PID over here. And there are certain factory methods for that. So for example, I'll just say CLUUID factory. And this particular factory will help me create some sort of a UUID over here. And we want it into the format of a 16 character. So I'll just simply say create UUID of 16, which ultimately will give me some UUID and I can have it over here. Okay. So it helps me map the parameter over here. Now, what are we supposed to do is if my parameters are being mapped over here and I am supposed to generate what? Okay. So for example, let's just visualize this. I have a late numbering implemented. It means my user won't be able to pass any number for sure, right? If someone try to click on create, after creation, someone try to click on a save button. The moment someone click on a save button, my GT travel over here will be pushed and populated with the data, right? And this data is going to come from my source entities. Will it have the travel ID, the primary key assigned to it, saying 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever is the number? Not really, right? Because At this point in time, I don't have a number assigned to it. Post which I'm identifying and passing all this particular identity in my map parameter over here. Now, after doing this, what would happen is in after my create call, which is nothing but my BIL layer, my save sequence is going to get triggered, which will finalize, do a check before save, then adjust numbers. Now, this adjust numbers is responsible for my number generation, right? So maybe we have learned the same thing in my manage scenario as well, saying if I say I have to adjust the number, I have to pass the right set of a number to it. So how can I pass the number to it? If I say I am trying to, or I can say I have to pass the number in my buffer, the buffer is GT travel. So I should be knowing that I am supposed to pass the data in my GT travel. If I push the right number in my GT travel, then that particular data is going to get pushed all the way down the layer where the data is going to get saved. So before a save gets in, I should be adding a number field, adding a primary key generated field over here so that the data gets saved with the right number. This is what I should be doing. Okay. Now let's just see what is the sequence into which I should be going and how it will behave for that case. I'll just try to put a breakpoint on this create, and maybe we'll also see how the flow is going to look alike. I'll just put a breakpoint in my adjust number as well. Okay. By the way, what it has, I'll just put a cursor on this adjust number. It has mapped and reported. I'll just put a cursor on my save as well. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll just simply try to click on. Okay, I'll just refresh this application first because we just introduced a late numbering, which my system may not be knowing. Okay, I'll click on this create. Okay, I get some data over here. Now I'll try to change something. So my draft is getting updated correctly. There is no issue in my draft updation. Okay, so here as well, my draft is getting updated correctly. Maybe we have not activated the breakpoint. That's nice. Okay, let me just change this from description updated. Yeah, this is what I was expecting. So each time you change something, ideally your debugger gets executed. Okay, that's something we should be quite clear about and we should be aware of that particular fact. Now it did not trigger my method called create. Okay, rather it's going in my same save sequence phase over here. Now over here, I'll just simply set this adjust number. In this one, locals, I can have some sort of a map over here, which will be empty because my create never got executed, right? At the same point in time, if I just go over here down the line on my save, execute this, I'm reaching on my save parameter, and in my save, definitely I won't have anything on my GT travel because that also never got executed. And at the end, ultimately, I can see the same screen. Okay, so we are getting that particular call multiple times, but at any point in time, my system does not have the data. Okay, now I'll try to click on create. Oh, why my debugger did not got executed? My debugger is terminated over here. Okay, I'll just go back. Okay, this is not the one. Go back. Click on create. Mm. This bit weird. Okay, let's just do it again. Put a new fresh breakpoint. Could be because of the fact that maybe the breakpoint was, or I can say the code has changed a bit. Okay, let's just click on create. Okay, I'll have to re-execute this application. It could be because of the timeout, but my debugger is somehow not getting executed. I mean, we can proceed, but maybe it would be good, or it would be more, you would be able to get it more clearly if we have the debugger screen appearing, right? So let me do this. I'll just close this and I'll just try to go over here and open the application again. This is my unmanaged application. Okay, let's just try to click on create again. Okay, this is getting triggered because I press enter, the preparation mode. How about the final save? Yeah, now it did. Sorry, maybe there was some issue with the earlier session that was open. Okay, perfect. So now we have got this. Now we'll go inside this particular create travel, go back, F7, F5. Now I'll just go in this GT travel. You see, it does not have any data, but I'm pushing the data over here. So now my GT travel has everything but the travel ID, right? All the information which my user entered is there, but the travel ID is not there somehow. Okay, so that's something maybe we are supposed to pass. That's true. Okay. One more thing, maybe we can just observe over here is this entities over here. Maybe we have mapping for everything, but this last two, four things, right? We have not added this into a mapping parameter. That's the reason these are also not getting populated. So we have to add the mapping for this as well as a part of our fix. Now, if I just say this particular travel table that's going to get populated, currently it's empty. If I press F6, you will see it will be populated with the CID is draft, the GUID that we generated, and travel ID, which is empty right now. So we populated this into a map parameter, and my map has got one record like this. I'll execute this again. This time, if I just go over here and I'll say that this particular GT travel over here, uh, I can say this mapped over here, which was supposed to be the local parameter over here, has not got anything. So if it has not got anything, how would I go ahead and generate a new number? Because I will need some input in order for me to understand what all things are there for the number generation. Because ideally in adjust number, you will get everything which are there for the new number assignment, right? So that's something which should be on us. We should be generating a new number post which only this particular method should have got executed. So I'll just cancel this, go back. And now in this adjust number, what we'll do is we'll try to write the logic so that my number gets generated and assigned correctly. Okay. So let's just do this. I'll just simply close this. I can say deactivate the breakpoint and I'll try to generate the number. So for example, to generate the number, I'll put a breakpoint, I'll put a cursor on this and I'll just try to create a method called adjust numbers over here. Okay, now I'll just try to use the parameter type response for mapped late. Do we have something for mapped late? Not really. I'll just copy this and generate. Okay, I'll just say TT mapped late. This one. Copy this. This one and TT reported late. That's also one of our parameter. Okay, and I'll just simply format the code. And add the implementation. Okay, now this adjust number that we do have, we'll use this to ultimately generate the number. But the issue that we also understood or found is that I'm not getting anything into the mapped parameter, the one which we are passing from here. Because ideally ref framework does not pass it automatically. Or I can say it does not pass that parameter at all. You are supposed to persist it and then maybe get it. Okay, so I'll just simply say adjust number over here, add this, and here maybe we'll pass the parameter. But we are not getting anything over here in the input, but we are supposed to pass the things into the output for sure. That would be our responsibility. Now, in order for us to do that, what we are supposed to do over here is that this map parameter that we are populating, we are supposed to ultimately use this particular generated components to persist and finally be used in the adjust number. Okay, so in a single statement, I can say I have to set this map parameter somewhere. For example, from the place where it is being generated. And finally, over here, we are supposed to get this map parameter. Once it has been done, what I am supposed to do is this particular map parameter, which are being generated, I am supposed to finally use this parameters in my exporting and populate this one in the GT travel as well. Post which the save method will do its side of work and maybe populate the data into the DB. So how can I set simple setter methods into the table? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just say what is the signature of this. Put a cursor. It says this mapped early. Okay. So I'll just create a variable which will store my map parameter. This is called key linkage. In terms of a wrap, this is called key linkage. In order for you to do the linking of the key in unmanaged scenario, you are supposed to save this particular map parameter somewhere. This is called key linkage. It contains 2 or 3 steps. So the one which we have is TT mapped early, right? Now this mapped early that we do have, we are supposed to set and get this. So we'll create certain setter and getter methods for this. Okay, so I'll just create certain methods which will say set map parameter over here, which will ultimately have some importing parameter. Call, for example, IT mapped. Type of it will be TT mapped early. And there will be a get mapped whose returning parameter over here is going to be my TT mapped early. So these two methods are over here, which we'll be using going forward. So I'll just simply say add this to an unimplemented method. And what we'll do is we'll call this method and pass the required parameter that we have got. Okay, so I'll just simply say set this map parameter. So each time you generate a map parameter, you are supposed to set this parameter. So I'll just simply say set map parameter and I'm passing this parameter over here. At the same point in time, the parameters that I'm mapping, I'm supposed to get this parameter over here saying LT mapped over here, and here I'm supposed to say get mapped. What the system will do is it will ultimately give me the parameters those have been mapped. Now this set mapped and get mapped should also be enriched, right? Because if I don't do that, how my system would know that, okay, I am supposed to use this particular parameter, or I can say I am supposed to pass on this particular parameter so that it can be used somewhere, right? So we are supposed to pass this parameter in a right way. So get map will be quite straightforward. All we'll do is this RT map will ultimately populate with the GT map that we do have. So maybe GS mapped. Okay. Now in the set map, what we are supposed to do is whatever we are getting, we are supposed to populate this and keep a copy of it into the buffer. I'll just simply say mapping header, or I can say travel linkage. And another one is a mapping my item, or I can say booking over here. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just simply say that my GS mapped travel over here should be ultimately populated. So we'll just go by two means, okay, over here. So one situation could be that my map over here is already initial. Then maybe I won't manipulate it, but if it is not, then maybe I'll try to populate it. So for example, the first one, as I mentioned, when the one which I'm receiving, IT mapped, right, dash travel. Okay, if it is not initial already, it means I am getting something. Then I'll pass it on over here. Okay, but what if that particular call that we are getting is not for the travel? That call is being triggered to set the booking parameters. Then I won't manipulate it. I'll just keep the information that I have. Same goes over here. GS mapped booking. Okay, and here I'll say simply when my IT mapped booking is not initial, then I'll just simply say IT mapped over here. Booking, else I'll just keep the one which I do have. Because it's quite possible that I am working on a scenario where my booking and travel both are under creation. Once a travel method has been called post, which during the booking, again the same method is being called, but at that point in time, I am not passing the map parameter of a travel. Then that should also not get disturbed. That's the idea, right? I'll just try to activate this. So at end of this, what we are expecting is this set mapped over here should have set some data via this particular logic. My get map should have returned this, and that's something which my adjust number would have got over here. By this time, my LT mapped over here should have got populated. And once it has got populated, my purpose over here is to assign it a right set of ID. That's something we are supposed to use and return into the response. Okay, how we can do that? Let's just try to view that. First, let's just try to view these things into the debugger. So I have activated this. I'll put a breakpoint over here. Okay, gateway timeout, and I hope there is any there up and running. I'll just try to click on create again. Okay, we have got the debugger. This time we are setting the data in the buffer. I'll just execute this. We have got the adjust number over here in LT mapped over here. As we can see, we have got the travel mapping parameter, the one which we set over here. Now, this is the one that we'll use going forward. Okay, so I'll just stop this debugger for now because we don't want to save the record without a right number. And now what we'll do is we'll try to adjust the code. Okay, I'll just say the plan over here is to fill the exporting or changing map parameter using the one which we received, right? So I'll just simply loop at this one, loop at LT mapped dash, or maybe logically it really makes sense for it to have a to call it, oh my bad, to call it as a work area rather than table because it contains table internally, but in itself it's a work area. Okay, so I'll just simply say in this particular case travel, I'll just simply say into data and maybe ls travel over here, and I'll just simply say where my number is not generated, right? Because if the number is there, it really does not make sense for me to do anything. So I'll just simply say where my number is initial, and I'll loop on this. Afterwards, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to, based on this, fill the map parameter. Okay, and this particular map parameter that we are going to populate over here is going to be my mapped travel over here, value hash, right? And here, what are we going to do is we are going to populate my data over here, saying in this one, keep the things which are there. I'll just simply say base mapped travel. Okay, and here we are going to populate the rest of the thing. So what my map travel is expecting me to pass? It's expecting me to pass some sort of a PID over here and the travel ID which you are going to generate. This temporary is something which is not quite important. These two parameters are quite important for us. So PID, I can expect that, okay, I'll get it from somewhere. So where is that somewhere coming from? PID over here. You see this work area over here, LS travel, it can give me that. It has that, right? So I'll just use this from here. LS travel dash percentage PID, right? Now the next one is passing the travel ID. From where I can get that? Let's just understand for that what is a travel ID. Travel ID is nothing but the next new latest number that we are going to assign. So we can get it from some sort of a normal logic, right? Saying, okay, what is the next travel ID kind of a thing? Maybe getting a maximum number from my DB, right? So I can write that particular thing. I'll just simply say generate next travel ID, right? Maybe in order for us to keep it clean, let's just generate it into the form of a method. Okay, so I'll just simply say this one over here. We'll also create one more private method, get next travel ID, which should return me the value over here called RV travel ID. Okay, and maybe type of it, we can keep it as this one, DMO travel ID. Okay, and we'll just add the implementation for this method. And in the implementation, we'll ultimately get the maximum number. Okay, so I'll just simply say, oh, my bad, get the max travel ID number. Okay, so I'll just simply say, select max travel ID from ZJAI. Do we have a travel? Oh, maybe it's JF. Okay, maybe we can get it from here, and maybe we'll get it from pass it into maybe let's just say RV. Okay, so whatever number that we get, we are going to increment it. Okay, I'll just simply say RV travel ID plus equal to 1, and maybe the variable that we have copied with at that, I'll remove this at that. So this method should give me the next travel ID over here, and I'll be using that. So I'll just simply say LV travel ID over here, get next travel ID, and this is ultimately going to give me the next travel ID. So I got that as well. I'll just copy this and maybe I'll pass this to travel ID over here, this one. Okay, so we have passed this over here. Now, after doing this, my map will have the new number. I have got the new number. I'll pass it into the response. Now let's just visualize the steps. After creation, the map parameter will be filled. This map we are going to get over here in my adjust number. And in this adjust number, I am populating the map parameter with the travel ID and PID combination, expecting it to get saved. But this save over here is working based on certain fact. It's working on the fact that whatever is there in GT travel, I'll populate this. So it means this travel ID over here should also be populated in my GT travel. It should also be populated in my buffer, right? So I'll just simply say I have to update the buffer here with generated travel ID, right? So I'll just simply say I am supposed to update my buffer over here. I'll just simply say read, for example, table GT travel over here, assigning field symbol, and maybe let's just go by the one. Going forward, let's just say in order for it to for you to make it more concrete, you can also plan storing the instance or the reference of your current map parameter which are relevant to your GT travel into some sort of a linkage table. That's also fine. Okay, it totally depends on how you would like to form the logic. So in this one, LFS travel, I'll just populate the travel ID over here with the LV travel ID which I got. And you can just simply say unassigned. Okay, now I have also got this table which has got this number as well. I'll just simply say source code format, and I just got this. Now I'll just try to activate this. So my mapped over here is going to give me the response, which is going to flow all the way to the output, which ultimately will reload my page, plus my save will also save the record. So I'll just deactivate the breakpoints, being a bit more optimistic and ensuring, or I can say expecting that this should work this time. I'll just simply click on create. Now you see it got 4139, the next number ultimately from the sequence. Okay, 4139, it just got that. If you generate a new one, you will get the other one. I can say the next number also getting generated tomorrow, and maybe let's just say some 28th Feb. And I'll just say this. Okay, so I see this information also getting saved with a next number. Yeah, this thing maybe, as we mentioned, is something which is getting lapsed because of the fact that we have not stored, or I can say added a right set of mapping. I'll just go over here and I'll add this mapping as well, created by and all this stuff. Okay, let's just do that. Created by over here is created by, created at over here is created at, last change by over here is last change by, and last change at over here is last change at. Okay, I'll just activate this. Okay, let's just go back over here and try to create a travel again. Okay, I have got the number, and ideally I should be making this read only. So I'll also do that to fine tune the application a bit. And does it really make sense for me to make it update now? Not really, right? Because we are not updating it. So I'll just make it read only created by at last change by and last change at. Okay, I'll just try to refresh. Okay, let's just try to click on create. Okay, we have got this information. I'll just simply say 789. Okay, 98 today, tomorrow, 10. Okay, and I can say euro and maybe new travel, open and save. So we see this information also getting saved this time. So this is working perfectly fine. I have a create working with an unmanaged scenario. Definitely, but I cannot be over optimistic and maybe I cannot expect that, okay, my change will also work overnight because that won't. I'll just simply save this and I'll see that, okay, this information never gets saved because my update implementation is not done yet, right? But are we all clear with the flow, how the things are connected, how the things are flowing?
Yes, Sumit.
Yes, Sumit.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Any questions? Nope. Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, which will proceed with the other implementation then. So we implemented the create. Let's just try to understand the another flow. So definitely the other methods that we might be focusing on is create, update, delete. So let's just try to focus on delete this time. Okay, we'll try to implement the delete method this time to see how the deletion is working. I'll just copy this and maybe we'll try to create a method as if it's already available here, like this one. Okay, my bad. Okay, I'll just simply say delete travel. Okay, and now this type deletable for delete, I'll just copy this and I'll just add it over here. Maybe let's just make it tt delete travel and here. Okay, I'll use this tt delete travel. Type response for mapped early. So do we have mapped early? Yeah, we do have. Copy this, use it over here. Do we have failed early? And have we got reported early? Here it is. Okay, source code format. And let's just implement this method. Okay, and I'll just call this method here. The purpose of it is to delete the travel. Now, as we can see, delete always gives us just the key because that's what is required, right, in order for me to delete any record. So that's something we'll do. Now, the situation for delete also remains the same. It's not that as if it's a delete, we won't keep anything into buffer. Okay, whenever you are saying you are deleting, you are also supposed to use this delete method only for keeping the buffer. Your final data that will get deleted will only be done in the actual method. Okay, that's something which will also should be let's just say ensuring. We should not blindly go ahead and delete the record and ensure that let's just say make save not usable. The actual activity of deletion will also be done in that particular one only. So for example, if I say I'm doing delete, where is that method? Over here. I'll just put a cursor. And here I'm getting some key parameter. Okay. Now what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to delete something. Now, if I'm supposed to delete something, how would I write my delete statement somewhere? For example, in my save method over here, I'll say if I have got something, travel ID, a set of a travel ID, if they are there, then delete the records. Okay. Then it makes sense for me to persist the data in some sort of a range, right? So I'll just simply say gr travel ID type range of DMO travel M. Uh, sorry, travel ID. M is a table. Na? So I'll get a range over here, and that's something I'll use in order for me to populate my buffer. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just simply say get the data from here first. Let me just get the data in the form of my entity, in the form of my table first. I'll just say LT travel ID, or I can say LT travel is a type standard table of my DMO travel M. Okay, and then I'll just populate the relevant parameter. How can I do that? Simply, we have used the keyword already earlier, right? If I have a parameters called key over here, which has got something, right? If I would like to do the right mapping, I'll just simply say mapping from entity, because my source over here is in the form of an entity like this, right? And the target over here is in the form of a table, correct? Now, afterwards, I'll fill the range parameter. I'll just simply say gr travel ID over here. Okay, and here maybe we'll just simply go here and just say that I would like to populate a range based on the information which I have got. I'll just simply say travel in LT travel over here. We'll populate kind of a range. I'll just simply say sign option is equal to, and maybe the low that we are populating, that's a table. So I'll write it in a bracket saying ls travel over here has got travel ID. Now you would think I can also omit this one. Yeah, you can, because you can directly get the data from a key, but that will be in the form of entity. So if you're doing that, you have to write entity property. So tomorrow, if someone is renaming the property name, might have to adjust it everywhere. Rather, if it's a table level thing, if something is going to get adjusted, the adjustment is only going to be there in your eye view, interface view, and that's the rest of the things will settle automatically. Okay, so that's the reason I'm going mostly wherever possible, not always, but wherever possible with the table property after conversion only. Okay, I'll just copy this, and here I'll simply say that I am supposed to delete something. Now, when I say I am supposed to delete something, then if I am having a travel which I am deleting, right? If there are certain records which are selected for deletion, my idea is if travel is going to get deleted, first thing that should get deleted should be the child. So it should be the in the reverse order of creation. So I should be first deleting the booking, and then I should be deleting the travel. Right. So I'll just simply say delete from my, let's just say, table DMO booking. Okay. Where I'll just simply ensure that my travel ID over here is in my GR travel ID. Same goes over here. I'll just simply say delete from my DMO travel, where my travel ID over here is. By this means, we should be able to delete that record. We don't need adjust numbers and anything to play any role over here. Reason being, we don't have, let's just say, any new mappings being established over here. Okay, because it's just for the purpose of deletion. I'll just activate this. Maybe once it's activated, I'll just go back. For example, let's just refresh this. Let's just start with this one only. Okay, maybe it's because of this login. Okay, this is working. This switch port. This 8080. We have anyway killed it. This 8081. Yeah. This 8081. So this is working. Now let's just refresh this. Okay, let's just re-execute this. Metadata is failing. Wow. Okay, got the issue. Is the web server down? Seems like. Okay, I'll just go over here. I'll just click on the ABAP environment over here. Oh, seems like a web server is down. Okay, maybe I guess the delete implementation is done. We are anyway left with few more things. Today anyway we would have only anyway be able to complete in case the things would have worked. So delete implementation is done. We are left out with the update post, which will go with her, like just actions and functions, and then manage with unmanaged save and additional save, and maybe the dynamic feature control, and maybe the app deployments. Okay, no worries. So we have maybe mainly 5 or maybe 1, 2 more things. Maybe if we can just get off, I mean, think of that. Maybe 5, 6 things left. Maybe server is down, so maybe we might have to keep the session of today short. But okay, let's just utilize this time in case you guys have any doubts, any questions on any of the things. Not today, but starting from the thing that we started understanding the wrap. Any one of you has any doubts in any of this? Maybe let's just try to discuss and see if you guys have any query.
Hey Sumit, this is Ekansh.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Yes.
So in terms of like actually deciding between the managed and unmanaged, right? So I know that you have explained it multiple times, but still I don't feel like confident in able to in able to be decide like you have mentioned the question who, right? Uh, and that too a lot
Okay,
of times. But
let's
Mhm,
just understand the thing from a problem statement perspective. Okay.
mhm,
So,
okay.
for example, my problem statement over here is, let's just say, my requirement. I have one user who is who is, let's just say, a person who is a kind of a startup company. Okay, uh, or maybe you can think as of there is an existing client who is coming up with a requirement for a new application. Now, his requirement is that I would like to build an application which is uh, for his new venture. So he is doing his new venture and he would like to generate some application for my e-clinical trial, for example. He would like to build an application. He is doing some sort of R&D research in some medical area and he would like to build an application. Now, your first question, whenever you are saying you are building an application, should be, is there anything that exists around this? Now, is there anything means what? It means that, for example, I am saying, hey, I would like to have an application whose mockup is going to be like this, for example. Here, there are certain, let's just say, a set of tables, and maybe in this one, here there is a table, there is some button which is going to do the bit of a trick over here. And maybe afterwards, the moment they say execute, certain operations are going to get executed and certain things are going to get executed. At each of the step, you might go back to them saying, hey, this is what I understood. Is this what you actually want? And you would implement it. If you are doing that thing, it means you don't have any business logic already available into the system, right? It means the application that you are building maybe in Fury, maybe in any other places, but there is no replica of it. Because as RAP is not the first technology which SAP introduced. SAP has so many technology in SAP GUI. I can have some reports if they are planning to digitize and just change the SAP GUI report into my Fury, or is there any other, let's just say, gateway or BOF application which your technical team has decided, let's just upgrade in the technology perspective and change this into a RAP. So how this call has been made? Is there any business logic already available? Second kind of a requirement could be that, hey, I would like to, uh, let's just say, build an application which manages my sales order. Or let's just say, if you're already having some application, manage XYZ things, XYZ in my system. And that's something which you already have somewhere. So when I say manage sales order, you definitely won't ask to the end user, hey, when you create a sales order, what all things you are going to insert into the input? Because you have some example, you have some thing, you have something where you enter something, something is getting processed. It means there is some underlying logic available. So if I consider it from a implementation perspective, then this is my greenfield implementation, not the whole project, but at least that particular application which I am developing is, from my perspective, a greenfield implementation, because business logic does not exist. Existing business logic that you are not supposed to build is 0%. Whether the one which you are supposed to build over here is 100% in the terms of business logic, and the one which is existing over here is 0%. Okay, then in that case, your choice should be managed. Okay, because in this case, I am going to handle both the things. I am going to handle the REST API behavior as well, because my Fury needs to understand. Plus, I need to place some sort of a validation. I might need to auto determine certain thing. I might need some custom actions and everything. So why not to hand over this activity to someone who is already handling it? That's the reason you will go with a manage. But consider a scenario where you are going to build something, but the existing logic over here is more than 50% business logic already exists, because there are certain reports, there are certain other things which are already available. Either you developed it during your tenure in that organization in past, someone other develop, or maybe standard SAP is giving that. So if the existing business logic is more than 50%, this is my criteria. Or I can say mostly the unmanaged scenario, everyone choose that if the business logic which is available is more sufficient, that and it's already available in a form that I can use it directly rather than recreating it. Because generating a business logic is not a small thing. It needs multiple client iterations. You will ask them, they'll come back with something, they'll try out something after even conveying that this is how it should be. They'll try out certain thing into the system, and they'll then they fall back saying, no, this is not what I want. After trying out, I feel this is what should be. So if 50% plus business logic already exists, and the one which you are supposed to build is less than 50%, then it really makes sense for you to go with unmanaged. Because in that case, you are not supposed to build full business logic. In many cases, like the managed sales order or standard APIs, 100%, or I can say more than 90% of the business logic exists, and you're only supposed to adjust minor chunks, very minor custom enhancement, customer things for you. Right. In that case, as the business logic exists, it really makes sense for you to also take the ownership of your REST API. And in this REST API, you now have visualized the hooks in the create, update, delete, what you can call. So there you should go ahead and call those particular existing API and take over the ownership, and you will get a more liberty. But REST API is something that you might end up and managing on your own, and in that case unmanaged will be the better choice. So it totally depends on how much of the business logic already exists that you can directly plug rather than writing it. But yeah, I can simply say if the thing which could have been developed via managed can definitely be managed via unmanaged as well. But here the development effort is more compared to this one. Getting my point?
Yeah. So how about the other way? If you think that has an application which should ideally would have been started as an unmanaged, uh,
Yeah.
if we
So
start as like managed, like what
if
are
you
the
start
issues
with
that
the
we're gonna
manage,
face?
okay,
Mm-hmm.
not the issues, but understand this thing. So for example, I'll say I would like to define a managed sales order application, and in the managed sales order, I have two options. Either I can reutilize the standard logic, which definitely makes sense rather than writing me everything. So if I would like to generate a application for managed sales order, I started with the manage, create, update, and delete is everything is working. Now tell me one thing, a normal guideline, okay. If I am writing a report where I am supposed to create a sales order, will I say insert into VBAK something data, or I'll just
Yeah.
call the BAPI because it's not only VBAK where it will load the data. Definitely insert
Yeah.
is not the right way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in that case, if I go with a behavior definition where I have a persistent table specified, I have a sorry, maybe this is not starting, but yeah, if I have a persistent table specified over here, and if I do the mapping, the moment someone enters something, VBAK is directly going to get pushed with the data. Will that be a right approach? No, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
you are going to directly going to push the data into table, which may not be the right way, and because many things might be impacted because of that. So if you're going with manage, you might end up doing certain thing. You might say manage for the performance, but while saving the data into the database, you would like to go with unmanaged save. Now, this unmanaged save is something we are going to learn. Like the adjust number that we implemented, it gives you a method called save underscore modified. Now, the limitation in manage with unmanaged save is it will handle everything in a managed form, but in the save modified, only towards the end you will get one control, and in that one control, this particular save modifies is going to be part of your save sequence. In this save sequence, what you will do is you will call your BAPI to update the data, you will BAPI to commit and everything. So there is this point of no return. It means you are supposed to enrich and overload your application with all the custom validations, ensuring that by the time your control reach in the save modified, your data is accurate and 100% perfect, which needs a
Mm.
whole lot of effort compared to when you go with an unmanaged one. Okay, so you have an alternative if you choose to go with manage. Many a time you okay, just think of this. Why would SAP
Mm.
give manage with unmanaged save and additional save if manage or unmanaged are the straightforward way someone can choose from?
Mm.
Many a time,
Mm.
as I mentioned, if your application certain business logic, for example, 20% business logic exists, but 80% does not. You are choosing to go with manage because most of the things are new that you are developing. You will say, hey, I would directly do the mapping and everything. My things will start working. For the rest 20%, I might request for some hook. That hook is going to be managed with unmanaged save, and that 20% scenario you are going to handle. That's where
Yes.
manage with unmanaged save work, and it makes sense. Otherwise, it makes sense for you to go with unmanaged if your effort in building business logic is planned to be lower side, planned to be on lower side. Okay.
I see. I see. I see. Okay, so just to wrap it up, I have one example. Let's say I'll tell
Mhm,
about an application. So it's a
mhm,
data entry application. I enter header app. Like ultimately, an invoice has to be generated. Let's say, and I have to use a BAPI. Okay, or I
mhm,
generate an IDOC invoice, IDOC, whatever. Right.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
so it's a data entry. We like let user enter header and item details. We do all sorts of validation, etc. Right?
mhm.
And like whatever user enters, we want to store that into the custom table. Okay,
Perfect.
with an admin field, last save date, username, whatever.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
and we do all sorts of validation. And once everything is fine, then we actually generate. like invoice. It's all an example. I'm
Mm-hmm,
just
mm-hmm.
trying to
Yeah,
think
yeah,
of. So I think with the explanation I got, I'm still inclining towards basically managed with that
yeah.
additional option that you said.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, in your case, if I also
mhm,
understood your example correctly, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to push the data into your Z table, which will be your
mhm,
main, let's just say, end point where your data is going to get persisted. At end of this process, you are just supposed to generate one additional business document that's going to be invoice, and that invoice
yes,
might get the data from the data which user is entering. So for
yes.
invoice generation, you might use the standard API, but your application's functioning, it's
Mm,
anyway driven by the Z tables, which is a custom logic that you are
mm,
implementing. Then you can
yeah,
go with a manage with additional save in that case. So
additional
your
save.
standard scenario will work. Additionally, you would
Mm,
like to perform something.
I see. I think now I think it's yeah, I understand because it makes sense because as you said, the 80% of the things is what I'm trying to do with Z table and everything, and rest all
Exactly, yeah.
whatever is remaining, I'm actually trying to use a BAPI or like IDOC or whatever, like additional standard things, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
okay, okay, all
So
right, thank you.
technically both are possible, but it takes, I mean, the only thing that we should be weighing about is what takes the less amount of effort and which, what gives you a chance to build an application which is less error prone,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I think I ignored the fact that about like you mentioned about the persistent table, right? If I have to do everything or the main thing is about the standard things, right? So then obviously it would not be the right approach to go with the managed ones, right?
Exactly, yeah. And if you would like to
Yeah.
get rid of the table, then you will go with manage with unmanaged save because the moment you add that, you will see that persistent table is something we are forced to remove. We cannot do the persistent table mapping. But even after you remove that, the amount of effort that you are supposed to spend and the hook points that you get in unmanaged, everything is open. You can write anything you want it
Mhm.
any in multiple places. But in unmanaged, you will get only one application, right? Only
Right.
one method. So that would be a bit difficult.
So in my examples, yeah, just one last thing. So in my example, if I actually didn't have a requirement of storing the data into the custom table, let's say if I had just an example in which I
Then.
take entry from user and just use like a BAPI, right? So in
Then
that case,
unmanaged will be the right way approach for
then
you.
unmanaged would have been uh, preferred choice.
Correct.
Okay, all right, got it. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. It was a nice discussion. Anyone has any other doubts, any points to discuss? Nope. Okay. Then thanks everyone. Maybe we'll call it a day and we'll see each other mostly in next week. Mostly, I guess, as per what I see, maybe next week I might not be able to continue in case there is something. So I'll intimate maybe at the max maybe by mid of the week if we have the sessions in next week, or maybe we'll have a break in next week, and maybe you guys can try out the things, and maybe we can follow in the week that follows. So we'll cover all the sessions and all the topics that we have planned, but maybe there might be a break of a week maybe in between. But I'll let you guys know. Okay.
Sure, sure. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Then. Bye bye.